know, when I first listened to that audio that I was given in 2005, see, I'm a slow learner. It took me 3 years to ever listen to it. But when I listened to it, I took it to heart. And really within first 3 or 4 minutes, Dr. Covey taught me the same principle that Rhea shared with you a moment ago that impacted her so much. But between stimulus and response, human beings have the freedom to choose their response. Sounds so simple today, but I'd never even heard of that. And at the time I used to always say short temper runs in my family. And all of my family, including me, would provide the evidence to support the belief. But after I listened to Dr. Covey talk about that for a couple of minutes in that audio, he said, human beings, because we have the freedom to pause in between and choose our response, human beings have that freedom to pause, literally. That means we're response able. And then he's kind of slid those words together and says that means we are responsible for our choice. When we pause, thing is, I didn't never pause. I went from a nice guy like you'll see talking to you now to like ballistic, like probably the craziest person you may have ever seen in your life. I probably was worse than that guy back in those days. But I took that to heart. It made a lot of sense. And then I listened on to the rest of it. And I heard him share a lot of other things that made sense. Some things I was doing in my life, some things I'd never, ever even considered doing, but I started doing them. It doesn't mean I got it right. I probably got mad at somebody that same day, probably 5 times it happened the same day, maybe 10. But when it happened, I thought about it. I had the freedom for that not to happen. So today, I don't even hardly get angry. But if I do, the worst I get is silent. And see, when we talk about leadership as influence, you think about on your team or just in life in general. Would you trust someone more who can control themselves or someone who couldn't? When you look at that one principle, it's real easy to know. Everything you guys want to accomplish, you're going to need more influence.